All right, Dave. Well, let's everything. You can hear me all right? Everything's good. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and kick everything off, and then we'll get going here.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, Alan, to address what I believe is a very serious subject. One of the reasons that I felt inclined to develop a relationship with you, Aquanetics H2o, because of what we went through during Hurricane accident, that our paths cross one another, because you have what I believe is an answer to some of the questions that we had concerning water quality. And a lot of people, in particular in the Hebrew community, that are tuning in, and a lot of people on our Facebook page that know us, we believe there are some things going on in our country, and it doesn't take a rocket science. You can look around and there's disasters. We saw last year drought conditions in California were astronomical. Now all of a sudden they're having huge flooding issues, and in the middle of a flood you can have contaminated water. Where we were at on the Gulf Coast in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, man, we just had horrendous problems having potable water to drink. You talk about a survival situation, and I'm just going to kind of put this out there. There's basically two ways that you can prepare for surviving a disaster. One of those is to hunker down in place where your home is, and hopefully things will get better in the short term. The other's preparing for the eventuality that you may have to relocate, and that is to be mobile. And when it comes to potable water, not only for yourself to drink, but also if you have an extended family, you need to take care of hygiene. You have animals, if you have pets that you want to take care of, if you have livestock and that sort, you've got to prepare for those things. Now, granted, we're all smart enough to know that we can prepare for it. We would like to be able to do that, but prudence would tell you that you got to do the best you can and prepare for what are major concerns, and then take care of business. But you and the folks you work with have designed what I believe is the best water purification system out there. And when people talk about it, they talk about filters versus.
Dave, did we lose you, bud? Sorry, folks. We might have lost Dave there for a minute. He'll dial back in here in a second. What Mr. Matthews was saying is we feel that it's really important to be ready or prepared no matter what the situation. I know a lot of people, especially on the West Coast, know this to be true. Into December, I believe it was December 23rd, several earthquakes on the California-Nevada border. And this was just recently. This isn't something that happened, many, many months ago. This just happened. Obviously, during the spring, summer coming through, Tornado Alley is going to be coming up. You have a lot of different, David talked about Hurricane Katrina and all of the problems that, of course, brought, not only with deaths from animals and things like that, but just being able to get potable water. Because remember, even during Katrina, one of the biggest problems with that was it took up to 3 days. 3 days for people to get any semblance of help. And that's why you saw a lot of the looting and a lot of unseemly things that happened with that. So we like to make sure that we are prepared no matter what. And so what our focus was going to be on today was to talk about why we feel it's important. Move my screen here. Why we feel it's important to be prepared no matter what, but how can we be prepared? And what does preparation even mean? Does that mean you have a backpack with a little bit of food, bottled water and things like that? Or do you have a family and pets and other things you have to worry about too? Okay, Dave's back.
Sorry about that, my friend. I don't know. We're so far out in the country sometimes that the creeks and rivers don't run every day. So I apologize for that.
No, go ahead. But you were talking about Katrina, I believe, and you were talking about some of the things you guys went through personally, and talk about that, and then we'll segue into some statistics from the WHO and CDC and some of these other organizations. So go ahead with
well, honestly, immediately we saw institutions come in like the Red Cross and some other disaster relief agencies that were bringing in bottled water. And of course, you know, you had to get in line to get the bottled water. And if you happen to be one of those that was late for that particular drop, well, then you just missed it unless you had access to some sort of a water purification system or a way to get water out of a well. And of course, we happen to be located in a place where we had a well, but guess what? There's no electricity. And so, you know, it just kind of exacerbated the problem. I found real quickly that it takes a lot more than just a couple of liters of water a day for an individual to have enough safe water, you know, to survive, and much less for your family, and not even to mention what would be necessary for personal hygiene. And bear in mind, if there are contaminants in the water that you may be drinking, whether it's from the chemicals or animals that had.
I think we're lagging there on your end there, Dave. Yeah, what Dave's talking about, guys, is when you run into a situation like that, whether it's flooding or whatever, even though the water's clear, you have to remember or think about, has anything died in that water? If it has, how long has it been there? And just because the water's clear, is it going to be safe to drink? And it's probably not going to be safe to drink. In a disaster area, any type of water main breaks, remember, water main breaks contribute to boil orders. We hear 1,000 of those a year, right? So, Dave, I don't know if you're still lagging there. Oh, there you are. Okay. But you were talking about the animals and things like that might be in the water.
Yeah, well, where we were at along the Gulf Coast at that particular time, there was a lot of packing plants. There, I forget how many tons of frozen chicken, livestock was washed out into the Gulf area, and of course, it not only was it washed out, but then immediately pushed back in. We saw local fish we were actually about 14 miles as the crow flies, and if you can imagine, winding creeks and rivers, you know, probably triple that. And there were fish kills that were just exponential, so you couldn't eat the fish, you couldn't eat the fish out of the water, and you know, you had to factor in those things, whether or not you could have safe drinking water. And we know that can cause serious diseases. And if you travel outside the country, in some of the third world countries, you have the potential for disease in your water, pathogens. And not only that, I can just mention a friend of mine that traveled a few years back, and he was doing everything he could to take care of drinking the drinking water. He was drinking bottled water, and he happened to run his toothbrush in the sink in the motel room and wound up getting hepatitis C from that. And so here's some major issues that you're looking for, something that can help you to get potable water. And there's some really great filters. I personally have a big Berkey filter. We've got some of the smaller handheld like Katadyn filters, and those work good in certain situations. But what you guys have developed, in my opinion, is pretty phenomenal. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you in. You're highly educated when it comes to water quality. And I wanted to know what the WHO, World Health Organization, has to say about how much water would I need in a survival situation in a relatively easy climate. If I was in the desert, probably a little more. But suppose I'm here in Oregon and my family needs water to survive. How much water do I need per person?
What the WHO says, and actually I prepared some slides, so I'll go ahead and start to present these now. But what the WHO specifically says is during an emergency situation, you need up to 2 gallons per day per person. Now, can you guys see the screen?
Sure.
Okay. what they say is just for drinking alone, and you're right, Dave, if you're in a hotter climate, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, you're probably going to need more than up to 2 gallons of water per day per person just for drinking. You could need more than that. But let's just stipulate that everything is, you know, spring weather, it's only 78 degrees outside, things like that. But let's go according to the WHO, who's done extensive studies on this. They're saying just per person for drinking alone, you need 2 gallons, up to 2 gallons of water per day. Now, caveat to that. I don't know one person that drinks a gallon, 2 gallons of water a day. I sure don't. Most people don't. However,
Wow.
when you get into a situation pertaining to an emergency, folks, if you think you're going to a grocery store, you've got some serious realization headed your way. I challenge everybody, sometime today, tomorrow, whatever, when you get a chance, go to YouTube and up the top, just type in "fighting over bottled water Hurricane Matthew." This is the last major hurricane that hit, I believe, in Florida and all that. Look at all of the fist fights, literal fist fights from people fighting over the last case of bottled water. So if you think you're going to go to the grocery store during an emergency, you're more than welcome to, guys, but you better be packing because you're going to be fighting with folks. But here's some statistics that we found. And guys, we source everything. Everything is sourced with the World Health Organization, CDC, University of Arizona, and through the gamut. But one thing people don't realize, and this is stuff some people may know, but a lot don't, of the Earth's water is fresh. That's not a lot. Worldwide, infectious diseases such as specifically waterborne diseases are the #1 killer for children under 5 years old, and more die from unsafe water annually than all forms of violence, including war. So more people die every year in the world or contaminated water. They die more from that than from war. Think about that. Now let's bring this home to the United States. Just here in the United States alone, 19.5 million people get sick every year. 19.5 million in the United States get sick from contaminated water. And consider this, the pack, it's called the hydro, the pack that we make was primarily made take care of folks that maybe are going to be off grid, because if the electrical grid is down, you're not getting water to your home anyway, because the water companies run their water pumps off of electricity. So you're probably going to be dealing with mostly surface waters, lakes, stagnant ponds, creek, drainage ditch, things of that nature. 93%, per the World Watch Institute, 93% of the surface water of the United States is polluted. Now, one old statistic, now this is an old statistic here, but by the late 1980s, it specifically states, if you'll see here in the middle, they specifically say that water in 33 major cities was unfit to drink. What's a major metro city? Chicago, LA, Dallas, Fort Worth, things like that. If you're talking about not only water and water quality and drinking, people also forget their food supplies. Water scarcity is now the single biggest threat to global food production. So people now, they start to think, okay, well, how does water get contaminated? And I don't want to bore everybody, and I apologize, but I want everyone to understand where polluted water comes from, industry and things like that. But it's even more simplified. Breaches in public water lines. Earthquakes, floods, things like that will breach water supply lines. Of course, when you have drought, like they had in Missouri, like we've had in Texas for umpteen years, it seems like, drought lowers the underground water tables as well as surface waters, like from lakes and so forth. The lower the water table, the more exposure we'll have to waterborne infections, viruses, bacteria, and things like that. Leaking sewer lines. And of course, water contamination does have to do with animal waste, chemicals in the water, Dave, you had touched on dead animals, things like this. Now, this slide here will specifically show some of your more common waterborne infections: Cryptosporidium, Giardia, Legionnaires, guys. Here's one that people don't think about. In major hotels in the United States, Legionnaires is popping up. People are dying in multi-million-dollar hotel chains from Legionnaires. Is it rampant? No. Has it happened? Yeah, it has. It's actually happened in Missouri as well, come to think of it. And so salmonella, hepatitis, you touched on that, and E. coli. Most of these won't cause you to die unless you have a depleted immune system. If you have immune deficiency in your body, these could actually kill you because of not only the infection but also from the diarrheal disease and on the nausea and so forth.
Well, one of the things we saw quite frequently along the Gulf Coast, a lot of the cities there had older piping systems that moved their water in and out. And so we were constantly experiencing problems and constantly having boiled water issues sent out.
Of course. And coming to this next slide here, let's talk, just really touch on really quick about natural disasters, because you've been through one. This first slide, on the left side of the slide, per the U.S. Geological Society, talks specifically earthquakes. Guys, this is old data. This doesn't even count the last 3 to 4 years. From 2000 to 2012, there were 47,000 earthquakes in the United States. 47,000, guys. And remember, not only will an earthquake knock out the electrical grid to major metropolitan areas, let alone smaller communities, but it'll also rupture sewer lines, water mains, and so forth. Now, on the right, floods and hurricanes. This is going to put this into perspective as it pertains to loss of dollars per year. And guys, this is the United States, nowhere else. $8.22 billion because of floods.
My goodness.
$3 billion from hurricanes. And please note, guys, all of the sourcing it's done on this. We don't just pull these stats out of thin air. Here's a map, guys, of fault lines within the United States. Fault lines or earthquake. This is an earthquake hazard map. So about 85% of the entire United States will fall under an earthquake hazard map. Obviously, the more red, you'll see that it's a lot more serious, down to the white, which is not really predominant. But I want you guys to look at this. Here's a natural disaster map too. Really interesting. This is from Data Foundry. And again, 80 to 85% of the entire United States either falls under floods, of course, hurricanes down the East Coast, tornadoes Midwest and out West. Of course, your earthquakes, which are super high risk, are mostly, your typical southeast Missouri, they're through the fault line and all of that. But it's no joke, guys. These natural disasters are occurring, and I think we become a little bit of immune to those because they're so frequent. It's like we get immune to hearing people being murdered on the news. Back in the 70s and 80s, sorry, I just dated myself. But back in the 70s and 80s, it was kind of a big deal. Somebody got murdered. Now, with the issues in Chicago and some of these major metro areas where you hear 30, 40 people being killed in a week, and it's like, well, that stinks. We just don't think about it. So with all of that being said, how long can you live without water? Well, it's up to 3 days. Food, you can live obviously a lot longer, but without water, guys, and this is just drinking only. If you get a skin cut, you get a bad infection, you don't have water to clean your wound, that's separate. But this is just drinking water for survival here, 3 days. So I guess the question is...
That was one of the major issues, Alan, that we ran into after Hurricane Katrina. There was so many people trying to clean up debris and constantly getting cut or scratched and getting infected because of it, and not being able to clean yourselves properly because you just simply didn't have adequate water supply. And people were doing the best they could. And I really, to me, I didn't factor that in until after all of it had taken care of it. If we'd have been in a situation any worse than what we were in, I think there would have been a lot more people that passed away in that disaster than we could imagine.
Well, that is exactly right. And so that'll segue into here. And we're just talking about natural disasters right now, but where are you going to get your water from? Because if there's a water main breach or there's issues like that with the sewer line ruptures that are getting into the water supply, guys, where are you going to get your water? A ditch, creek, pond, public water? Probably not public water, because some statistics that were put up, state of Massachusetts, Massachusetts.gov, interestingly enough, but and this is just a boil order, guys, not a natural disaster, but just a plain boil order. Can you drink? No. Ice cubes, brush teeth, prepare food, wash vegetables, baby formula, all of that, no. Can you take a shower or a bath? Well, they tell you not to for babies, of course, and children to sponge bath those guys. If you have open wounds, no. Now, if you're an adult and you have a decent immune system, you still have to keep your eyes and mouth closed, no swallowing. You can't get it in your tear ducts. You don't want to get it in your ear canals. If you wash hands, you can if you boil the water first or use bottled water. But remember, during a disaster or an emergency or a major boil order like they had up in St. Charles County, Missouri, and I lived there, so I was kind of through it, you had 2 or 3 days solid boil order. Guys, there's no bottled water at the grocery store anymore.
Exactly. Well, there's another conundrum that's presented by that boil order issue. If let's say you're sitting at your home and you're trying to make it through a disaster, what if your electricity's gone and you happen to have your heat source is electrical, then you have a problem. If you were mobile, if you were traveling and you were in a survival situation and you needed to boil water, what accessible fuel do you have close by in order to do that, to boil enough water to sustain you and an extended family? So again, that presents a problem.
It absolutely does. And boiling water, they say a rolling boil for 3 minutes will kill bacteria and viruses, and it absolutely will. That is absolutely true. Where are you going to get the fuel, or how are you going to boil water if you're at home and you can't get out? Okay. How are you going to boil water? I don't know. Now,
good question.
Well, David, a lot of people that are preppers, I call them preppers, that maybe will want to bug out, is what they call it. They want to pack up their truck and get out of Dodge and go to the cabin that they have in the woods, whatever. A lot of people want to stay inconspicuous and not really draw attention. Well, if you boil water, it creates smoke, you're burning wood, you have fire, you're drawing attention. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at that. Are in this city, and there's a boil order, guys, you can't drink it. You can't drink it. Now, here's some of the statistics, guys, that just really quick. This is per the World Health Organization, and this is a humanitarian sphere chart that they put up that they say situation, guys, this is minimum water requirements. The activity on the left, you'll see drinking plus cooking, drinking plus sanitary on the left. Then it goes over to how much water per person per day, family size, and then total per day. Let's just say it's just you and your spouse. Or you're a single mom and it's just you and your child. Just for drinking alone. Drinking alone, nothing else, guys. 10 liters per person, which is 2.7 gallons per person per day. That's 5.4 gallons of water that they suggest that you have on hand for drinking per day alone.
My goodness. Well, let me just kind of throw another scenario at you. During Hurricane Katrina, there was quite a number of people in my own congregation that lost everything, lost their house, wound up with no place to stay. Some of them were living in tents that were donated. Some were outside. They moved in with other families. And so you have a situation there where you don't have your traditional public water system. And so now, if you're not getting some sort of disaster relief water, then you're relegated to having to go to a moving stream of some sort or a pond. And again, you have the contamination exacerbated if it's been blown in or the flood moves it in. And so that presents another issue, right?
That's exactly right. And I guess, you know, and we'll get to the hydro here in a little bit, but the reason I'm showing everyone these statistics, guys, is it's no joke. I mean, you've got so much stuff already going on in your life. You know, now you got to come up with 5 gallons of water for you and your child, or just a family of 4, 10.8 gallons. That doesn't count cooking. How are you going to cook your food? In sanitary, if you look at the bottom, 32 gallons a day, guys, for 4 people. 32 gallons. This doesn't, remember, this does not include, this is light sanitary, but if you had to not only take a sponge bath, is probably what you'll do, or just rinse your hands and face and things like that. But what if you had to clean wounds too? You're going to need to use a little bit more water. What about your pets? If you're, you know, one of the preppers, guys, you can't put severely contaminated water on your plants or your vegetables or your crops, or give them to your, because livestock like chickens is another food source, right? You can't give all of these other different things contaminated water. So this gallons per day, that's just for people. That's nothing else. And I'll show you the actual chart from the WHO so you can look it up. It's called the Sphere Humanitarian Charter and Minimum Standards in Disaster Response. This is per the World Health Organization. Okay? And as you see here down on the left, let's talk about how many liters per person, which is 2.7 gallons, right? Notice the more water you need, it says decreasing quality. That's because water is becoming scarce because it's an emergency or a disaster. So yes, you need more and more water for these things, but that doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily that great. Okay, so this next slide, we'll talk about a little bit what we do. Because there's a lot of different types of water purification and all of that kind of stuff out there. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pull that up now because this is actually, this is pretty important. Methods of purification. Can everyone see that okay? You see that okay, Dave?
Honestly, I've lost my video feed, but I can still hear you. I've got internet issues where I'm at. I apologize.
No, that's okay. All right, no, it's up on screen. There's different methods for water purification. A lot of these work for what they're designed to do, but there's a lot of cons to a lot of these. Let's talk about this really quick because this will segue into why we do what we do with our specific system. Top one is to boil water. Fairly easy to do. I mean, if you have electricity or you have wood and fire and so forth. Of course, it doesn't really cost you anything. What's the con to that? Well, you need electricity. You need fuel of some kind, whether it's sticks, logs, paper. You have to get the fire started first and get it raging before you can boil water. And remember, boiling water does not remove chemicals by itself inherently, unless you know the temperature of that specific chemical. Let's say a water-soluble lead or something. What is the temperature tolerance or the boil tolerance of water-soluble lead? Well, it's several hundred degrees. Are you going to get your boiling water past 200, 300, 400 degrees? No, you're not. Well, then you're probably not going to boil it out. Filtration works good. It'll remove like the floaties and some sediment. You can get rid of some odors and chemicals and gases from using, depending, guys, this is all predicated on the type of filter media that you use. But filtration on its own understand this, will not remove all contaminants, and it will not remove viruses smaller than the pore size. Okay. I think you had mentioned your little Katadyn, your little hand pump filter earlier. Really cool little items. Most of these things work okay, but guys, the nominal pore size of that filter is a 0.02 to a 0.01 micron. It's very small. But viruses, per the Water Quality Association and the EPA, viruses can be as small as a 0.004 micron. The pore size of that filter. You're drinking viruses. Unless you use some contaminant or a chemical post-filtration to kill it. Now, some people will use like the silver impregnated filters, or the cartridges, I'll call is what they are. Those colloidal silver is an antiseptic. Silver is inherently an antiseptic. But the EPA, and technically it is. So you're having to introduce things to kill these viruses in your water, because the filter will not get rid of all viruses. They can't, because of the pore size. Now, chemicals and chlorination, the pro on that. But now you chemically contaminated your water. Also, what people don't realize too is chlorine can produce chemical byproducts that will cause health issues. You have to now, see, you killed the viruses and bacteria with the chlorine product that it leaves behind. Now you got to get rid of that now with additional steps. UV light, it'll neutralize, kill, eradicate bacteria, including viruses, protozoa, and things. But just the UV germicidal on its own will not remove chemicals and sediment and things. Ozone, another cool, this is actually a pretty cool technology. It takes a really high current electrical charge, creates a little ozone puff or a little chemical reaction of ozone within the water or the air, and it will kill or neutralize organisms, bacteria, and things like that. But it is very, very expensive, of energy, which can be a problem if you don't have huge battery source or something, and it will not by itself remove another thing. So you need additional filtration steps on top of that. So that is something that I wanted to show everybody, just to give them an idea of the different kind of technologies out there, or some of the things that people do, but those by themselves aren't good enough. They're not good enough. Okay, so this is what we have done, and I'm sorry I messed up my slide, but this is what, within our research, 4 years of R&D on our pack, what we did was we looked at all of these different variables having to do with water quality, filtration, purification, and we have a 4-stage germicidal process when it comes to our actual solar hydro backpack system. We do a 4-stage because we feel that the best shot that you have at getting the best water possible in an off-grid situation is not only removing VOCs and trihalomethanes and chemicals and things of that nature, but you better make sure you eradicate disease and waterborne bacteria in the water too. UVC, the germicidal. UVC is a light. It's a spectrum of light, and it's the germicidal spectrum. Living tissue has a UVC tolerance, and in fact, our skin has like a UVB tolerance too, because you can get a sunburn, right? But with DNA strands and DNA material, it has a UVC tolerance. Okay, and I don't want to get all scientific on everybody, but, and you can look this up, but the germicidal range in light wavelength is UVC. You have UVA, B, C, then you have X-ray, gamma rays, cosmic rays, and all that jazz. But the UVC, when you introduce germicidal, this actual light range to Ebola virus, it kills it. It'll sterilize it to where it cannot reproduce in your body, or it'll actually kill the bacteria virus. One thing that's interesting, and I don't know if you can see my cursor here, we use 14 watts of UVC. Our pack runs a gallon a minute. That's what our flow rate is. We can put out a gallon a minute. Here's what's interesting, is that our UVC irradiation that we introduce to our water is 3 times the amount that even the World Health Organization requires for a gallon a minute.
That's amazing.
See, if you, and this is an actual statistic here in this box down here. This is from the WHO. And our flow rate, okay, we use, this is 40,000 microwatts of UVC. We use 40,000 microwatts of UVC in our system. Guys, that's equivalent to a 3 gallon a minute flow rate. We use 3 times the amount to make sure whatever's in that water, we're going to kill it. Okay. So we couple our filtration with our different filter media along with the UVC germicidal in a 4-stage process. Not only can we reduce and remove bad taste, sediment, cysts, which are larger, Sporidium, volatile organic compounds, VOCs, trihalomethanes, and these things. But guys, you're talking Ebola, cholera, polio. And I'm not just only talking about E. coli and things that, of course, we're going to get here in the States. But the reason we use so much UVC irradiation in our system is because missionaries, third world countries, guys, they come across jaundice and polio and typhoid fever and yellow fever and malaria and all these things that we typically don't really see here in the States. We kill all of that stuff. And I want to, and I hope I'm not boring everybody, I'm sorry. But the reason I also have this chart as well is cholera is a big problem. To kill cholera, you need 6,500 microwatts of UVC. We have 40,000.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to interrupt you too much, but cholera results when there's dead bodies, whether it's a human or cattle that's been introduced to a water stream, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, that's one way. That's exactly right. And then, well, if you're talking about some of the things that people don't really see over here, that's where you get into the other diseases as well, like, of course, Ebola and things like that. Ebola is passed through water. It's waterborne. If you sneeze, is in the spray or the mist from your mouth, and it is in contact with an open wound or a membrane or the eyes or nasal passages, you can transmit it that way. But these microorganisms here, again, cholera takes 6,500 microwatts. We have 40,000. Legionnaires, 3,800. We have 40,000. Polio, it takes 7,000. We have 40,000. This is to achieve 4 log inactivation. So we do filtration with the UV as well. So I wanted to talk about, and again, I hope I didn't bore everybody, but we wanted to talk about that really quick on that, because I wanted everyone to understand where we're coming from when we're putting together our system and why we do it the way that we do it.
Well, one of the things I really appreciate about the system that you've got is that it's portable. If I needed to become mobile, or maybe I'm a hiker, a backpacker, and I want a good portable system, I pick it up and I can carry it with me. Now, if I were going to try and carry my own drinking water and I needed, a couple gallons a day, and say I've got a family of 6, and so all of a sudden now multiplied that drinking water need by 6, a gallon of water weighs what? 10 pounds?
8
8
pounds.
pounds?
Right.
Logistically, I couldn't carry enough water.
No, you can't. Remember, guys, per the World Health Organization, you're going to need 2.7 gallons per person per day to survive. Okay, 2 gallons per person. So family of 6, 12 gallons. 12 times 8 is 96 pounds of water. That's not food. That's not guns and ammo or whatever. Guys, that is just water, nothing else. That's just water.
And so what's the flow rate on your system?
Our flow rate is 1 gallon a minute. You can get up to between 30 and 40 gallons of purified water on one charge of the system. Now, guys, this is completely off grid. This is why we made it this way. So you can get 30 to 40 gallons on one charge. Shut the system off. And as you know, Dave, you have one. Solar array included with it. Put the power supply with the solar panel out in the sun for a few hours. Charge it up. Go do it again if you had to. Get another 30 gallons. Turn it off. So if you work this right, go get your water first thing in the morning, 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. Get 30 gallons. Bring it back. Now say you're at 10:30 in the morning. Put your power supply out. Charge it with the solar for a few hours. Now you're at noon, 12:30. Get 30
You can
more
actually
gallons. Come back.
I like it because you can actually hang the solar array on your backpack and charge it while you move it.
Yep. You can do it that way too. There's so many different ways you can use the pack. So many different ways that you can use this. And like I said, it's really, really interesting because we want to make sure not only are we providing purified water, but we want to make sure that we're providing ample amounts of purified water. Guys, it's not just about you anymore. It's about, look, a lot of people have the 25-year food storage, and I actually like the idea. I do like the idea. What are you going to cook it with?
Yeah.
You better have water. What about your pets? If we're talking about also for the preppers, they think of insecurity. They think about security as well. So they'll have dogs for security. They do. Not only guns, but dogs are really good. Well, what are you going to give your dogs? Because you want to get that out of their food source to get eggs every day. You can't contaminate your chickens with contaminated water because you contaminate the eggs. So it's not just about me and my 2 gallons that I need every day. I'll just use a little bitty pump. I have to think big picture. And that's the purpose of the packets. We've never tried or even preached that we're here to take the place of a Sawyer or a Catadine or a Life Straw. Guys, they all have their places in this world and they're all good stuff. But you will never get 50 to 60 gallons in a day off of a Life Straw or a Catadine or a Sawyer or a Berkey. Most Berkeys won't do it. And I own a Berkey actually, and they're pretty cool stuff. But
yeah, we own a Berkeley and we used it during Hurricane Katrina. And you can get just a couple of gallons a day, and you sit there waiting for that thing to drip, drip, drip. It's excellent, but it serves its purpose.
Absolutely does. They do. But so the idea is enough water for a family of 4 or 5, a small community. I have churches buying these because it happened, and they had to be a hub to help their local community, with some food, a place to stay, water. They're going to have enough water for 50 people per day just off of one of these little systems. Now, one of the questions that I see is, we don't need that much water. I hear that a lot. And that's a great point. Technically, you yourself know you don't need 50 gallons a day. I don't. I can cook and clean and do all that with probably 15 to 20, and I understand that. But folks that don't need, well, during an emergency situation, if the food supplies are cut off, what are you going to barter with? Everyone already has guns and ammo. Everyone already has probably 25-year food storage, or they have canned goods. What are you going to barter with? When you run out of food or whatever it is, you've got something that nobody else can get. Because once bottled water runs out, guys, you're not getting purified water unless you stand in line with FEMA. And remember, during Katrina, it took 3+ days just for them to hit. Where are you getting your water from? So bartering is obviously a pretty big, I think a pretty big tool for this as well.
I think so too. One of the things we found after Hurricane Katrina, we were in an area where there were a lot of elderly people, and we wound up sharing food, sharing cooking supplies, sharing water, because we did have a generator that could pull it up out of the ground. What better way to be able to minister to people that are in need? Because let's face it, if my neighbor or whoever Father brings across my path doesn't have the water, and I do have the capacity to generate 40 gallons a day, what better way to minister to them? And you know, that's one of the selling points for me. I've got one of the models that would do exponentially more than that you originally had in the Pelican case. Remember?
Yep. The reason we went to the backpack is because it's a lot more portable. It's so much more portable. It weighs less. You can roll it. You can backpack it. The solar comes with it and the whole deal. But that's why we've really specifically focused on the backpack itself, because it does weigh a lot less, and we found that it's a lot more portable.
Well, we've got a kind of a running joke around here. I tell my kids that I want them to beef themselves up, because if in the event that we did have to bug out for any reason, I want somebody to be able to carry my food, carry my guns and my ammo, and carry my water. So even my daughters can carry this backpack filter.
Yeah, well, you can pull the little handle and you can roll it like luggage. Now, here's a picture I'll show you guys just to give you an idea of how the pack works. This is exactly what it looks like. And this is taken from live footage. You'll see numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. This is at a pond, and it's full of ducks and goop and grime and all that floating around. We're pulling water straight out of this pond, straight into the pack. It goes through. The stage 1 is a pre-filter because it has a screen on the hose that's down in the water. So we make sure we don't suck up leaves and sticks and all of that. Stage 2 is your sediment filter, which grabs any mud or floaties out of the water. That's a 1 micron filter, guys, very small pore size. Then it comes to this number 3 stage. Number 3 stage is the GAC or carbon block. That is a half micron, 0.5 microns. So any small particulates that get out of 2, we'll grab them with 3. Then we hit the filtered water. And guys, this is all off grid. Remember, we hit the filtered water with the germicidal UVC module here. And what comes out of it is pure water. And these gallons we got off of 1 charge, 31. The reason we had to stop is we ran out of jugs. But there is actually a video on the Aquanetics H2o YouTube page. There's a video that says how much water can you get off 1 charge. And it'll actually show you uncut video, all of the water that we got off of 1 charge off of that. So really interesting stuff. Really.
What about maintaining it? How easy is it to maintain it? How easy is it to clean it up, store it in between uses if we were backpacking or whatever?
Well, one question that I got was, and this will actually segue into the maintenance. How much water or filtered water can I get off of the filters? And that's a question I do get all the time, and that's a great question. The very first, and let me see if I can't pull that picture back up. The very first filter that's in line, okay, the sediment filter, there is not a gallon rating on this one. Here's why. If you're at, and I've shown you the video, Dave, if you're at the Mississippi River and you're basically sucking up chocolate milk, it is very muddy, very turbid. Okay, there's not one manufacturer on the planet that will give you a gallon rating on the sediment filter, because if you're sucking up a bunch of mud, am I going to get 31 gallons off of that sediment filter? Absolutely not. See, it's not the cleaner the water that saves the filters, it's the clearer the water. Okay, so if you have really super bad turbid or muddy water, get some 5-gallon buckets, scoop it out, let the sediment settle, and skim. Okay? Or if you don't have that kind of time, have extra sediment filters on hand. Now, the second filter line, the carbon block, is rated for up to 3,000 gallons. 3,000. It's awesome. So it's really nice that you get that type of water production out of that. Expensive. The sediment, I think, is like $6 or $7, and the carbon block's like 10 or 12 bucks. They're very inexpensive for this type of application. Now, the way that you'll actually maintain this is once you pour your water through your pack, basically all you do is you take the number 2 and number 3, the filter canisters, the residual water out of that. You can take out the UV germicidal lamp, dump the water out of the top of the module, put the canisters back, run clean water through it just to flush it. That's it. It's pretty simple. I like to take my filters out. Let's say that I used my pack just today because I needed 30 gallons for my family. So I'll take the filters out, let them air dry. I'll rinse out the canisters, put them back on, just like I had mentioned, dump any residual water out of the UV chamber, let everything air dry. You can leave it wide open and let it air dry, or you can put everything back. If I'm not going to use it for an extended period of time, I'll leave the canisters off. I'll leave the UV module open. Just let the backpack air dry.
Well, let me ask you another question, Alan. How durable is this backpack? Now, I've got one of my own, and I could actually tell the people what we've experienced. But I've looked out at, like I said, a lot of different filters and purification systems, and the materials that you used in here, in my opinion, were high quality.
Components that we use, and I don't know if I have the spec sheet on this pulled up. I'll try and find it. But the components that we use, guys, carry many, many certifications. When it comes to water quality, most people have heard of NSF or Water Quality Association and those type of organizations. Our components carry a lot of different certifications, and let's talk about the certifications on this. We carry an NSF 42, 51, and 61 certification because we use very, very, very sterile components, very sterile components when it comes to our system. We also have a certification called USPVI, which is a medical grade certification. On some of the components. In fact, some of these components are actually used in hospitals. It's no joke. Most companies will not use the type of components we use because, frankly, they're very expensive. They're very expensive. I brought up a brochure here, and let me know if you can see it okay, Dave. But
yeah, I see
I've got
it.
a brochure, okay, up on screen. This is what it looks like. 22, 23 inches tall. I believe it's about 14 inches wide. And you can backpack it. It has a retractable handle, so you can actually pull it like a little piece of luggage. Now, when I'm out in the field purifying water, I actually like to lay it back at like a 45-degree angle. You can stand it up straight, or you can, I don't lay it back flat, but I'll prop it up like on a little log or something, lay it at a 45-degree. Now, here's all the certifications again. We're down a minute. Even, guys, here, this black protective cover that we use, it's actually bacteria-resistant material. Pretty expensive. It's very expensive. The material on the backpack is water-resistant. Okay. It's got the handles and all of that. Certifications, germicidal, NSF that we spoke about, medical grade FDA, and remember, because of the amount of UVC that we use, we exceed WHO standards when it comes to that. And of course, the different applications, they're about as endless as you could even use your imagination, is what I'll tell you. If you're an outfitter and you have a 10,000 acre ranch, well, quit dragging, 20 gallons of water with you if you don't want to drag them in the back of your pickup truck. Pull out of your pond or your creek on your property what you need for the day. Who cares?
Right.
Hunting, freshwater boats, camping, hiking, obviously first aid, CERT teams, community emergency response teams. This is vital for these guys. So the applications are pretty endless when it comes to what you can actually use it for.
Who are some of the organizations that the people would know if you dropped a name that use your particular product?
I've got a gal out in, you know what, and I'll see if I can't show her to you, because she sent in a video testimonial. But a gal that lives out in California at the San Andreas Fault, she's part of CERT teams out there. She has one. I have churches that have these now for their communities. I haven't, as a company owner, we haven't really gone after major organizations yet, because we wanted to start this company on the grassroots level, because we feel that it is so vitally important to make sure that your end user, or it's your folks that are hunting or freshwater boats or things like that, are using these first. These are the people that want to make sure that here she is, her name is Michelle, that they have water first for their families, for their small communities. Second reason we really haven't gone to the big organizations yet, Dave, is because everybody knows government. If they want something, they'll take it.
Well, that's one of my concerns, is that they would try and take and replicate it and take the product from you.
Well, we're in patent pending status, which is awesome, but it's not full-blown patent yet, but it has been filed. So that's another reason why we haven't gone to major organizations, but we do have people that are in CERT teams. Obviously, we've shipped these. We're in 5 countries now. We shipped to Jakarta, Indonesia. We're in the Dominican Republic, Haiti, with a missionary that has one. We're in Honduras, and of course Canada and United States as well. So people from all walks of life are starting to obviously see the value in what we do. That's nice, but we would rather keep it grassroots at the very beginning. Obviously, of course, the cleaner the water out there, the more people that we can help. Are keeping just people from getting sick, but we like to stay grassroots to start with.
What kind of feedback are you getting from people that have bought the packs? I know personally we've helped put those packs in the hands of a number of people here in Florida, Mississippi, and different places. What kind of feedback are you personally getting? I know we've had some excellent responses. People have been very satisfied.
I will tell you, it's been pretty humbling, because people that actually, again, guys, this solar hydro system is not for everybody, and we've never made any bones about it. We're not upset if people don't buy it. It's the way it is. Not everyone can afford one, and it's not cheap. To make this is absolutely out of control expensive. If I told you how much it costs to make one of these, you'd probably ask me why we do it. But the folks that do have these, country, in Canada, have these, the response has been extremely humbling. It's been, I will tell you, I have not gotten one complaint, which is odd. You know me, Dave, that we're always tweaking. We're always wanting to make things better. We're about to introduce an additional component to actually make this a 5-stage purification system. There is no portable 5-stage purification system out there that I know of. And I do a lot of research. But the feedback has been, we can't believe how much water this is. Minute, but we don't really realize how fast it comes out. They like the hydro wash, which is one of our attachments. 30 psi. So when you snap on this, it's called a hydro wash. You can actually take a shower with this attachment on it, one of our attachments. You can actually bathe in this or clean wounds with this. There's nothing like that out there. So the response has been absolutely incredible. It's been incredible, you know. Now, Granny is not going to backpack this. It does weigh 20, it weighs 20, and that's the question, how much does it weigh? Approximately 25 pounds. So Granny is not going to backpack this, but Granny can pull it like a piece of luggage, right? So we tried to make this as light as possible, as effective as possible, but as portable and convenient as possible as well. I think we've achieved that.
Well, I definitely agree. And from a pastor's perspective, I wish that we could take, see local congregations at least get a couple in the congregation, extended families. Like we have 6 in our house here, and we have one. And I'd like to see that happen simply because I'm convinced that there's going to be a definite need in the future. And, hopefully people will understand the need for quality water. And, it's kind of about priorities. I know we spent a lot of money back in Mississippi putting food up. And we found out when it came time to move from Mississippi to Oregon, we had a tractor trailer load full of food that we'd, put up in mason jars and number 10 cans, and we had to haul that. So we decided, well, we're going to go to dehydrated stuff. Well, you need water to reconstitute the dehydrated foods. And so we realized we also had 55-gallon drums that we had purchased in Mississippi that we were using to purify water, and we'd put the chlorine in it, Guess what? Try and move a 55-gallon drum full of water. So to me, this is the best thing on the market. You should have seen my wife trying to move that 55-gallon. She can carry this.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I hope all of your viewers that they indulge me really quick, but I want to give you an idea of how this works. We do have a little promo video, and I'm sorry guys, but it's only 3 minutes. But I think that this will give your people kind of an idea of how it works. I'm going to see if I can't pull that up really quick. And again, indulge me. I'm sorry, but let's see if I can't get this up on the screen for you guys and see if this will play. And let me know if that's on the screen, Dave.
Yes, it is.
that'll just give everybody just a little bit of idea of how this thing works. So anyway, I hope that didn't bore any of your viewers, but this gives you an idea of how versatile it is.
Yes, sir. Well, I really appreciate it, my friend. It was excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, and anybody that's even interested in even talking about the hydration, the solar hydro, get a hold of Dave. Dave, make sure that they get your, because Dave is actually somebody that we've worked with, everybody, and make sure you get with Dave if you're interested in something like this. Email him if you have any questions. If you have technical questions, again, for us, thanks. I appreciate everyone for asking us some questions earlier. But if you have any questions for us about the pack, scientific stuff, whatever, you're more than welcome to call us. 252004343, 325-200-4343, or you can also email us